Okay, we're going to come to order. The time is now 7:12 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the October 23, 2025 Prince George's County Board of Education meeting. I'm Jonathan Briggs, Vice Chairman, presiding as Chairman this evening. This meeting is being interpreted live in Spanish. To listen to the Spanish interpretation, please call 508-924-5155. Once again, the number is 508-924-5155. We invite you to focus on the screen for the Spanish version of this announcement.
Hay una línea telefónica simultánea disponible para las personas que desean escuchar la reunión de la Junta en español. Si desea escuchar la reunión en español, llame al 508-924-5155.
All right. For anyone unable to join us live, this meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the PGCPS YouTube channel. Lastly, for recording purposes, the chairman reminds all board members to ensure that their microphones are turned on when speaking. Board Member Walker, please lead us in the board prayer.
O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Barton, please call the roll.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Ajakaye?
Present.
Dr. Anderful?
Present.
Ms. Boozer-Strother?
Present.
Mr. Briggs?
Present.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Goins-McCants?
Present.
Dr. Moss?
Present.
Mrs. Olivo?
Present.
Ms. Walker?
Present.
Mr. Jackson? We have 9 present.
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Barton. A quorum is present. We're going to move to the adoption of the meeting agenda. If there is no objection, the October 23, 2025 meeting agenda will be adopted. There being no objection, the October 23, 2025 meeting agenda is adopted as amended. Are there any corrections to the September 25th, 2025 closed session summary, the September 25th, 2025 board business meeting, the October 7th, 2025 closed session summary, the October 7th, 2025 board work session, and the October 16th, 2025 public hearing? Okay, there being no corrections, the meeting minutes are approved. We're going to now move to the news break, and we have a PGCPS highlight. So I want to recognize the communications team for the PGCPS spotlight titled English Language Development Program.
Welcome to Prince George's County Public Schools.
My name is Amalia and I'm in 7th grade.
As you can see, we are one big international family, and we want you to feel right at home.
When a family walks in the door, we want to make sure that they feel welcome, that they know that they have a place in our schools.
My family recently moved here from the Middle East.
The English Language Development Program, or ELD, was formerly known as ESOL. It is the program we use to teach your child the English language.
But now -4 and +3.
I was born in US, but I speak another language at home. Do I qualify for the program?
My family moved here from another country. Do I qualify?
Yes, you are both eligible. The ELD program is available to students in grades K through 12 if the child was born outside the United States, the child recently studied in a school outside of the United States, or a language other than English is spoken at home. Prince George's County Public Schools is uniquely qualified to teach your child Our district features more than 30,000 international students, and our talented teachers create a welcoming environment for everyone. ELD is not an after-school program or a special education program. ELD does not provide translated texts to students. What ELD does is teach students academic and social English language during the regular school day. ELD is a series of classes with specific strategies to increase students' ability to read, write, listen, and speak in English. ELD teachers use a combination of strategies: visuals, sentence frames, learning by doing, direct vocabulary instruction, collaborative conversations, modified graphic organizers, and building background knowledge to develop English language proficiency.
Have you tried? You might ask me, okay, how does the first class look like when a student just comes where they have never been exposed to English before? How would you communicate with them? I would tell them, I have so many universal techniques that can be communicated other than language. We have visuals, we have bilingual dictionaries. With the help of technology, we have a smart board, we can communicate with the student.
The ELD program make me feel welcome.
Bienvenido.
أهلا وسهلا.
Bienvenue.
Welcome to our PGCPS family.
I want to thank the communications team for that great video and presentation. So we're now going to move to the report of the Vice Chairman. Throughout October, the Prince George's County Board of Education has been busy. We hosted a series of community-focused events designed to inform, engage, and empower families. The month began with the Special Education Forum on October 4th, 2025, hosted by Chair Brandon Jackson, District 6 Board Member. This event was held in collaboration with Mrs. Amy Olivo, Mrs. Robin Brown, and Dr. Felton Moss from Districts 4, 5, and 7, respectively. This event provided parents and stakeholders with valuable resources and updates to support students with diverse learning needs. On October 11th, 2025, student member of the board, Ariola Ajakaye, sponsored and celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month with a special event honoring the culture, contributions, and achievements of the Hispanic community within Prince George's County Public Schools. On October 18th, 2025, the District 7 board member, Dr. Felton Moss, partnered with the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and held the Ready to Launch College and Career Ready Forum, offering students guidance on post-secondary opportunities. On the same day, board member Lolita E. Walker held the December 9th District 9 community chat, encouraging open dialogue between residents and their elected board representative. The month concluded with the District 2 Town Hall on October 22nd with yours truly. And this town hall allowed community members to learn more about ongoing initiatives within the school system. These October events highlight the board's dedication to connecting with families, celebrating culture, and supporting students on their paths to success. We hope to see you all at our November events, and we encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss out on these great community events. Sign-up links and instructions can be found on the board webpage. At this time, I would like to call for a moment of silence as we honor the memory of the following PGCPS staff, family, and community members. Harry W. Henry Sr., father of Dr. Tracy Malone, Director of Talent Acquisition and Management. Joe Young, cleaner, building services, William Wirt Middle School. Valerie Mason, aunt of Jackie Brown, Office of the Superintendent. Joyce Lee, mother of Victor Lee, Office of the Superintendent. Darren Johnson, cleaner, building services, Northwestern High School. Rhonda Ennis, paraprofessional, C. Pleasant Elementary School. Terry Bradley, food services satellite leader, Food and Nutrition Services. Suwad Badwe Majub, food services assistant, Food and Nutrition Services. And Brandy McCoy, teacher, University Park Elementary School. Okay, we're going to move to announcements. So the board informs the public of the following upcoming meetings. Please turn your attention to the screen for the list of meetings. So on October 28th, 2025, the Disability Issues Advisory Board will hold its virtual meeting at 6 p.m. On November 5th, 2025, The Parent and Community Advisory Council meeting will be at 7 p.m. virtually. November 10th, 2025, the Academic Achievement Committee meeting will be held virtually at 5:30 p.m. November 11th, 2025, the Policy and Governance Committee meeting will be held virtually at 5 p.m. On November 12th, 2025, the Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee will meet at 5:30 virtually. I think we know this is going to be 2025, so I'm going to say on November 13th, the board business meeting beginning with the closed session at 5:30 p.m. will be followed by the open session at 7 p.m. at the Sasser Building. On November 18th, the Disabilities Issues Advisory Board will be held virtually at 6 p.m. And November 19th, the Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee meeting will be held at 4:30 virtually. Please continue to check the board website for updates and more information. I now want to move to public comment. So I want to recognize the registered speakers for their public comments. To our registered speakers, you are allotted 3 minutes to share your remarks. Speaking time may not be transferred to another individual. The board will not engage in dialogue during this portion of the meeting. Speakers are expected to refrain from using profanity or derogatory language. A warning will be issued once. Continued misconduct may result in the speaker being muted or removed from the meeting. To support a professional and courteous environment, speakers are encouraged to refer to individuals by their titles, such as chair, board member, superintendent, or principal, rather than by name. This evening, the board received 3 public comment requests from the individuals who wish to speak in person. There is 1 written comment and 1 pre-recorded video. And so I encourage those who were not able to speak to submit their comments in writing to testimony@pgcps.org. Again, that email address is testimony@pgcps.org. Our first speaker for this evening is Mr. Joseph Jakuda, individual. He'll be speaking on agenda item 13.1, Climate Change Ad Hoc Focus Work Group. Mr. Jakuda.
Good evening. Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs and the Board of Education. I'm here, my name is Joseph Jakuda. I'm the lead volunteer for Climate Parents of Prince George's. I'm here to speak tonight on item 13.1. I applaud the continued progress made by staff on implementing the Climate Change Action Plan and show support for the work being done by the Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee. As we can see from the recent acknowledgments by Mabe, given the board member Boozer-Strother, the work being done by the board and PGCPS on climate action is quite important and shows the leadership from the school system. I won't lie, I thought times would be harder for this work after seeing what's happening in Washington, but thankfully the state of Maryland is filling the gaps by issuing grants for the installation of solar panels, purchase of electric school buses, and funds to offset net zero construction, among other initiatives. It's great to see that PGCPS has the capacity to bring these resources to our system and the board's support for this work. These investments are not just good for the environment, they also show the students that the school leaders care and provide long-term financial benefits in terms of reduced energy spending, which is even more vital given how the Mid-Atlantic power prices are rising. Every solar panel, battery, and efficient building helps to combat these rising costs that will provide a negative impact on PGCPS's budgets, if not. And the progress is being made in other areas too, like an expanded climate curriculum. At the last Climate Change Ad Hoc Committee meeting, there were updates on progress from Eco America, Youth Climate Initiative, Career Technical Education, and Howard B. Owens Science Center. This is really important work to teach the students about the future they will be facing. Thank you for all you're doing, continuing to be leaders in making our schools more sustainable, and for continuing to be a bright light in these darker times, and for making us PGCPS proud.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Jakuda. Next, we have Ms. Krista Williams, individual, to guide the expenditure of funds to achieve the greatest educational returns.
Hello, I won't be with you long. I'm here referencing Administrative Procedure 3223. The Board of Education expects that all funds provided for PGCPS for material supplies, equipment, services, contract administration, and contractual services will be expended and handled in the most effective, prudent, and efficient manner. My name is Krista Williams. I am the band director for the Visual Performing Arts program at Suitland High School. Our current processes are far from prudent and often have students and their teachers waiting for materials too long. There's a lack of transparency with the PO process, purchasing and tracking of approved items. Our current process lacks real-time communication and tracking between the teacher, administrators, and fiduciary agents. There should be a universal district level, not school-based, real-time tracking and monitoring system for POs and checkbook process. This process should include the date of request, submission, approval or denial status, PO creation, payment, and finally the receipt of items purchased. If principals are the chief fiduciary agent, there needs to be transparency with all parties. When an item has been approved or denied and formally submitted on the school level, there should be some type of communication. On the subject of fiduciary agents, I would like to know why a non-administrator, a non-fiduciary agent, has approval and denial authority over a club checkbook, a club that is not connected to their job or their description. There should be a reasonable submissions timeline as well. If I have to answer and respond to emails within 24 hours, then it shouldn't take 2 to 3 months for an administrator to look at a purchase request. It should not take 4 to 6 months to start the approval process. A yes or no response doesn't take long. If we don't have the funds, then communicate that early in the process. I found out about canceled POs months later informally when it could have been an email. Anyway, as of current on the school-based level, the submission of quotes and invoices is a hurry-up-and-wait game in which a teacher hopes in limbo for months, often without communication. Sometimes orders are submitted incorrectly, thus leaving us with incomplete orders. In my experience, far too often the quantity or items have been erroneously entered, changed, or canceled altogether without notification or rationale to the requesters. Often it has nothing to do with the availability of funds, but human error or someone just simply not doing their job. Students and teachers should not have to wait 9 months for a box of reeds, drumsticks, paintbrushes, or markers. Personally, I'm tired of begging for an update of POs only to receive poorly taken screenshots of said PO. We need a district-level tracking process. I yield my time to the board.
Thank you so much, Ms. Williams. Next, we have Ms. Shannon Reed, Individual Growth.
Good evening. Recently, I met a teacher who greeted me with, "Thank you for fighting for us." Her words captured that feeling. Dispossessed in our classroom, schools, in this educational institution, and in many other communities, teachers have been dispossessed, bearing the responsibility of decisions made without teachers. Right now, the all-time low scores reported by the National Association for Educational Progress have been discussed widely, including in articles in the New York Times and The Atlantic. Both articles discuss complex factors and fear widespread illiteracy. Neither publication considered how the decline in literacy parallels the disappearance of the teacher as leader. Dispossessing teachers facilitates failure. Frustrated, many students have simply stopped coming to school. Those who come might encounter a teacher with the skills to impact their needs, revealed in persistently stagnant scores. Yet for the last 3 years, the Chief Accountability Officer has presented magnificently unhelpful data analyses, leaving teachers with the Herculean task of gathering and monitoring students' data. Even if the flawed comparison that highlights Black students in PGCPS outperforming their peers in the state did not ignore that PGCPS's 338.3 overall average on the ELA MCAP, which places PGCPS among the 4 counties in the state with scores below 40%, it would still not be helpful. Teachers must have the time and training to analyze data for precise instruction and growth. Restoring teachers as instructional leaders prioritizes teachers and students. When this happens, it will eliminate the profound dishonesty, misplaced responsibility, and performative competence that allows ineffective or unproductive administrators, principals, teachers, and students to remain undisturbed. Right now, I could deliver any of the testimonies I have shared with 3 different superintendents over the course of 3 years, and all of the testimonies would still would be still wholly relevant. The dashboard must be seen for what it is, a tool in a system that needs to be dismantled and repaired so that PGCPS exploits possibilities and not people. Paying administrators who cannot impact students like teachers have and will impact students is injustice. Injustice robs people of creativity, resourcefulness, and time. Growth is hard, just not that hard. For the last 3 years, a PGCPS elementary school has had the highest MCAP average in the state. Growth is hard, just not that hard. In 2023, my MCAP scores were 86, 68, 41, and 20% in my English 10 class. Last year, I analyzed the school's data and not my own. This year, my scores were 75%, 66%, and 65% for English 10. PGCPS needs well-trained teachers to impact student achievement, and starting teacher salaries at $100,000 with an annual increase of $10,000 yearly would help stabilize the teaching workforce. Teachers would feel this too, and it would lead to growth. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Reed. Okay, the written public comment and pre-recorded video has been uploaded to Diligent for the public to view at their convenience. I want to thank everyone for their testimony, public comments, and thank you for your participation and input. I'm now going to move to the superintendent, so I want to recognize Dr. Joseph for the superintendent's report on data dashboards growth model.
Thank you. Thank you, and good evening, Vice Chair Briggs, members of the board, members of our Prince George's County community. Tonight, we're unveiling our new Prince George's County Public Schools dashboard and student growth measures. This tool represents our commitment to transparency and to tell our story with accuracy. For too long, others have defined the narrative about our schools. Now we can share the facts ourselves, highlighting both our progress and areas where we must improve. The dashboard gives us clear, honest pictures of student growth. More importantly, it allows us to target our resources with precision, so the support is directed where it's needed the most. This ensures that we're not simply talking about equity, but practicing it. We have already begun training our principals and assistant principals on how to use the dashboard. By equipping our school leaders with real-time data, we're empowering them to make informed decisions that directly impact teaching and learning. This work is about more than numbers. It's about trust, accountability, and ensuring every child in Prince George's County has the opportunity to thrive. Tonight's presentation marks the beginning of a new chapter in how we share our progress and how we move forward together. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Jamie Bowers, Director of Testing, Research, and Evaluation, and Anthony Whittington, Director of Monitoring and Accountability.
Good evening, board members. We are very excited to show you at the board meeting this evening our Prince George's County Performance Dashboard and speak briefly about our Student Growth Measure reports, which are 2 new initiatives that Dr. Joseph just spoke about. So when we think about the rationale and purpose of our dashboard, we thought about what is really our goal? What is the purpose we are hoping to achieve with our students, with our parents and families, with our principals, with our teachers? And the dashboards serve several purposes. They serve to move beyond a simple proficiency score and show more of a nuanced, actionable understanding of district, school, and student progress. They also serve to focus on the data that is most critical to our district. And it contains all of this data in one centralized location with the ability to disaggregate into more meaningful pieces for our teachers, our students, our parents, our families, and our stakeholders. It also exists to analyze the academic growth, which we will speak about in our student performance measures, and it uses a model that's specifically chosen for its focus on fairness, equity, and actionability. The dashboard we consider fairness as it compares students to their own trajectory, not just to one fixed benchmark in time. It also allows for the district to see whether or not schools, interventions, and supports are helping students grow, even if they are not yet proficient. And it also is actionable by showing data that is measuring growth and where gains are being made and extra supports are needed. So our dashboards have 3 distinct groups of how we can help serve and provide information for our district leaders, our school leaders, and our teachers. The impact needs to be measurable, and we need to think about how we as district leaders, how school administrators, and how teachers in the classroom can use this data to be actionable. Some of the things that district leaders can use this dashboard for are establishing multi-system tiers of support, providing evidence-based interventions and supports, operationalizing local policies, calculating academic returns on investment, as well as completing programmatic evaluations. Our school leaders can use the dashboards in the following ways. They can implement those evidence-based practices and interventions. They can implement the multi-tiered systems of support, and they can also provide teacher and paraprofessional development and professional learning opportunities to become more data literate. Our teachers can use the dashboards by action research through their PDSA cycles and their school performance plans. They can create more personalized learning for students, and they can also provide more targeted interventions and supports for students. So our performance dashboards consist of 3 main areas. We have a school district performance, we have an individual school performance, and an individual student performance. Each of these main dashboards highlight several key measures and features that stakeholders, parents, families, teachers can use to measure real-time gains and growth of our students and schools. In our performance dashboards for our district, you can see that we have many key indicators and measures that schools will be able to use to determine how well students are growing and how much they are gaining in academic performance and other measures. The measures that are on our performance dashboard for the district include enrollment of our students, service group and demographics of our students, graduation rate for our high schools, on-track graduation, college and career readiness status, suspensions, academic proficiency and academic growth, on-time arrivals of bus to schools, culture and climate survey results from both our district and state climate surveys, chronic absenteeism, and vacancies. Each one of our measures or tiles on our growth dashboard have a specific dashboard that you can click on and see more real-time data for each of those indicators. This data is also updated daily, weekly, monthly, and annually, depending on the data set. So we're going to focus on one of our specific tiles, and that's academic growth, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Whittington.
Good evening, board members. All right. So keep in mind, not all students reach grade level proficiency at the same time. But what's most important is that they're making progress. That's why measuring student growth is so important. It shows how they're learning and improving over time. This shifts the focus from a student performance on a single assessment to their overall trajectory of learning. Next slide. 1 second. Okay, so how best to measure academic growth? Well, we determine academic growth by having an outside firm build a statistical model that creates individualized expectations for every student based on past performances. These expectations or growth targets are measured against their academic peers. Once testing is completed, we simply compare the actual score to their projected score. This comparison gives us a true measure of growth for the year, which we categorize and display using a color-coded system. Growth reports are then created and made available to all schools and district leaders. And the school reports show a color-coded growth effect size, or what I refer to as the impact of the instructional program, which is then disaggregated by content, by grade level, and even by student and service group. This growth effect size table helps us understand how well students are growing academically by comparing how they were expected to perform with how they actually did. Each school is given a color, red, yellow, green, or blue, as you can see at the top, to show how much progress students are making. Now, while green is good, the best way to accelerate the learning of students is simply to increase the number of blue designations on our reports, therefore strengthening all of our instructional programs. Thank you for your time. I turn it back to our superintendent.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Joseph and team. Board members, if you have questions, I will recognize you in the order of your number. We're going to start with Board Member Brown.
Thank you so much. So I did have a couple of questions, but I'll be brief. One of my questions were about the operational implementation and dashboard use. What training and support do principals and teachers need to use the dashboard for classroom level decision making?
Sure, I can speak to that. So preliminarily, the last 2 weeks, we had time in front of our principals, and we had time in front of our assistant principals to have an hour presentation to introduce the dashboards to them. We gave them a brief tutorial of the dashboard. We had them engage in a scavenger hunt activity. This was just to build some context and some knowledge of the dashboard. And then we will work with Dr. Morrow to plan future sessions at other area meetings, cluster meetings, and level-alike meetings for our principals and assistant principals to continue their knowledge about the dashboard and how they can use that to look at performance for their school and hopefully infuse that into their stat days as well.
The other question I had is how will the district validate the growth model, incorporate stakeholder feedback, and iterate the dashboard over time?
There's an outside firm that we've contracted with, so we're not taking care of this movement in-house. And each assessment that's given, we recalibrate the growth scores, which is actually compared to the academic peers. So over time, right now we have a baseline, and as this year goes through and the following years, we continue to compare that against their academic peers.
So do you think that there's going to be a return on investment for major interventions and evidence-based programs?
That is my expectation, that we'll continue to grow and strengthen our instructional program in each of our schools. That's why I was saying that color blue. We want to see more blues. We see a lot of green, meaning that we're meeting expectations right now, but our ultimate goal is to exceed expectations, because one of the board members mentioned earlier is that we were towards the bottom in comparing our other LEAs, and therefore increasing our expectation will continue to grow proficiency across the board for all of our schools.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next is Dr. Moss.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, I don't know what that means, but I appreciate this, this change in perspective around how we look at student performance, this measure of higher than expected growth, lower than expected growth, and unsatisfactory growth. When I looked at the district report in ELA, I just want to elevate all the categories and subgroups, our students, our farm students, any of our subgroups that we measure all of them were showing expected growth. As a district, when we measure, we may not be hitting this indicator at the state. That's one picture of what's happening with a student, but this expected growth is important. But there was one category, which is students with disabilities, and we know that team is doing a lot of work to, be able to advance what's happening there. And then I went to District Heights Elementary School, which is in District 7, and they had, in a couple of categories, higher than expected growth. So I'm curious as to how are we finding, or what is the leadership model of finding schools that are meeting higher than expected growth, and how are we translating that to other schools that may have the same demographic makeup, that may face the same academic challenges? What is the leadership task in terms of finding out what the good folks at District Heights Elementary are doing, Suitland Elementary, all those good schools in District 7, Andrew Jackson? How do we spread that love across other parts of Prince George's?
So one of the things we're doing when we're looking at the data is looking at schools like demographics and like data. And as we use our stat day, that's one of the strategies we use to actually look at similar characteristics and things and what's going on, sharing best practices across the board so that we can emulate them in other schools. And so using the dashboard during this time will help us to see that and to actually look at programming as well, because in some of our schools we have different programs going on that actually foster some of that growth in different ways. And so that's what we'll be looking at as we dig deeper with our dashboards.
And just one other question. I think I have time. I don't know what this means.
I think they started over, so let's just give it 45 more seconds here.
I don't know, they started me over. I think it's the good Lord telling me I've got 2 minutes. This is a question for the superintendent. Given that we now have this new configuration of thinking about growth, what are we doing to onboard the citizens of Prince George's with, you might be seeing one data point from the state that's saying we're not making progress as fast enough, but we've got this other indicator saying our young folks are actually meeting expected growth.
Yes, we have work to do to communicate with the public about growth, and what we want to lock our families in on is their individual child, and how's your individual child performing. Make sure they understand how to read this data and what it means. Ideally, what we need to do too is figure out, because again, the goal is to get students blue, not be content with green. And definitely when it's yellow and red, there's work to do. We need to make it easier for families to see the resources that we have within the district to help accelerate their students. And that's work, working with our parent engagement group and working with curriculum and instruction and IT. Because we've got a lot of resources here. I think one of the big challenges we have in Prince George's is not that we're under-resourced, because we've got a lot of resources, but I don't think parents know how to access the resources that are available. And we've got to do a better job of just explaining it, making it easy for them to find, and better partnering. But that's the work that we plan on engaging in this semester.
All right, thank you so much. We have Board Member Goins-McCants.
Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs. So that was actually about to be my first question about how we're engaging families. So thank you, Dr. Moss, for saving me some of my time. The other question that I had is very similar to what Board Member Brown asked, but specifically about this third party that we got to create the algorithm for growth. Can you all give us a little bit more of an explanation about what that actually means and how that might differ from the type of growth we're typically used to seeing and talking about in academics?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. He's using a regression model that's similar to our state report cards, where we have an indicator called student growth percentiles. He's doing something similar, where you're simply connecting academic peers or students with like scores and measuring their progress accordingly, but setting a benchmark each time that they're being assessed. So it mirrors many of the things that the state is doing currently and adding points to our state report card. Is that helpful?
That is helpful to me. However, I do this for a living. So in terms of how we're explaining this to our families, how exactly, and I know you kind of hit on this a little bit, but is there a concerted plan to make sure that when those trainings, et cetera, are done, that individual families are getting that information? So to the Dr. Joseph's point, parents and caregivers know how to address their specific child's needs?
Right. We're working closely with the communications office. We'll have on-demand videos that'll walk you through the dashboards. We have a one-pager that's already been created that explains student growth with individual students as examples and their scores. And we'll continue to work alongside all of offices as well as the communities. We've already met with County Council to talk about this new initiative, and they will actually have our links for the dashboard on their websites as well. So we're moving, this is brand new for our school district, but we are moving quickly so the learning will take place for all of our key stakeholders.
And in my last few seconds, I just want to celebrate the fact that we have this. Like, this is groundbreaking. I'm so excited.
I just want to add one more benefit. These growth measures come out these reports come out 3 times a year, and we hear repeatedly from parents and families how frustrated they are that they don't get MCAP data until after instruction has occurred and it's no longer actionable. So the other positive benefit is these reports come out 3 times a year when data is still actionable for parents and families. So we want to make sure to include that in our communication, that we are trying to make a very concerted effort to give them more real-time data.
All right, thank you so much. We have our student member of the board, Ms. Ajayake. You can correct me if I get that wrong.
Ajakaye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I really do, just like board member Zakia McCoy, just like our board member already stated, I really do appreciate this dashboard as well, because I feel like it is something that will allow students and families to continue to know where they are like throughout the school year. But one thing I do want to, well, first off, I want to ask, who has access to this dashboard?
The dashboard will be public facing. So right now we're still beta testing the dashboard. It has not quite met our language and accessibility measures that we want before we publicly release it. But eventually the dashboard will be public facing and will live on our website. So anyone that can access our website will have access to the dashboard.
Okay.
And as the superintendent's vision, to make as many of our data points outward facing, to give true transparency. And I think of this as like the health of your school, because it's not just the growth component, but it's a number. Chronic absenteeism is attached to the dashboard. You're looking at enrollment trends. Even suspension numbers will be outward facing for all public to see for every one of our schools. So we have a district dashboard, but the next link is the individual schools, and you can log into each individual school and see some of those same metrics to show you how well the school is doing over a period of time.
Okay, thank you. So what I really wanted to ask is that, like, if the students would have access to this, because it is the students' data that you are putting, like, on the public so that everybody can, like, see. So I wanted to know if it would be, like, a system where, like, students will be able to log in and essentially, like, go and see how they're doing as an individual so that they can know whether they need to, like, meet up or, like, just continue to do better throughout the school year. Like, maybe they didn't do so well on an MCAP testing and they have, like, suggested strategies or tips that they can use for the next MCAP testing so that they can continue to increase throughout the year.
Yes, so the goal is with the third tile on the dashboard is to have individual student. So a parent or student will be able to log in directly through Parent View in Synergy and be able to see growth reports for all of the assessments that were used for the growth measure reports. Because we, like you said, we want to provide more detailed feedback for students and how they can help improve. And so we can't do that unless we put that out there for students and parents to access.
Okay, and then real quick, before my time goes out, instead of using just Parent View, because the students wouldn't have access to their parents' account, can we also consider using the Synergy Student View as well, so that the students can actually log in and see it by themselves?
Absolutely. Good feedback.
That's great. All right, Board Member Olivo.
Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs. I will admit that my prior board members took all of my questions and comments, so just thank you all for that, and I'll just echo my appreciation and congratulations, and just ask quickly, I know we're still in the beta testing. Do you have an estimated or a goal timeline for this to get out of beta to be public facing?
As soon as possible. We're working with the communications office this week to develop our communications plan. We'll probably work with Dr. Jackson to have one of the family institutes dedicated to this But the goal is to have all of our beta testing. We want to make sure that it's accessible for our parents and families who English is not their first language, as well as parents and families and other stakeholders that have accessibility needs before we put that out there public facing, but the goal is as soon as possible.
All right. Board Member Walker?
Thank you so much. Board members have taken all the questions. Thank you, so I won't reiterate, but I'm glad you talked about the communication, because what I did write down is I'm all about a did you know. So, you know, like, did you know a dashboard, that you can now get the dashboard by school? Did you know that we're now looking at growth and what the growth definition is so that parents can understand it? But it seems like you all are all over that, so thank you so much. Whenever you have those, we'd love to get them out, and if we can do it in a form where we can post it on our social media, as well as we can articulate it through video, that'll be super amazing. And also, if we can consider leveraging our PCAC to be able to get into communities, and now we have our community liaisons where we'll be able to also partner with them to make sure that our folks know. Thank you so much. Those were just comments.
All right, thank you so much. The next up, we have Board Member Boozer Strother.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as we guide parents to being closer to this data on a regular basis, is there a way to see the historical benchmarks and MCAPs? Because I remember a period of time there was this Pearson portal. I don't know if there's something that's live today.
Yes, so on the district dashboard and the school dashboard, we will have links to our formative assessment measures, DIBELS being one of those, and our benchmarks being another. So when you click on the DIBELS and the benchmark tabs within the assessment tile, you'll be able to see at least 3 years of historic data for both DIBELS and benchmarks for parents and families, because that is something that has not been public facing for parents and families prior. So we wanted to make sure and include that important information, because those are the measures that are really determining how students are doing with instruction in the classroom. So we are incorporating those within our dashboard in the academic proficiency section.
And does the state provide the MCAP online somewhere for parents? Is that something that could be promoted more?
We have our own MCAP dashboard in the same tile. The only thing that parents receive from the state are the individual student reports. They get a paper copy that is required by COMAR to give to each parent and family at least 30 days after receipt by the school. The state does not currently provide a dashboard for parents to see. That's always been part of their vendor contractual relationship, is they always have tried to have a vendor create a parent dashboard, and it just has never gotten off the ground. But MSD has also entered into a new RFP and are looking for proposals for new vendors. So I'm hopeful that maybe this, if they select a new vendor, that they will have an MCAP dashboard for parents and families to see more real-time actionable data from the MCAP.
Yeah, because many parents do not see that piece of paper come home. So I think that that gap really needs to be filled. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So we have a second round question, but I want to see if there are any other questions from board members for this first round. Okay, I did have a really quick question, Dr. Bowers and Mr. Whittington. So I guess, now I'll say this in full transparency, I didn't have a chance to script out what I normally say, so this may be a bit of over the place. Please and definitely start my timer because I can talk, so just want to make sure I'm not going over here. I have a question about looking at the data longitudinally. So when we're thinking about our school's growth over time, I know that we've already mentioned that we've made so much progress. When we think about where we were last year, and also the specific student demographics that we have, students with free and reduced price lunch, students who are English language learners, multilingual learners, whatever the term is. There's a lot that our district uniquely is navigating that's very different from a lot of other counties in the state. But I guess I am curious because one of the things that I noticed was that across the different counties, Prince George's County is growing. But if one were just to look at the data, they might say, oh, wait, if I'm looking at Prince George's County comparably to another county, Why are they not performing maybe perhaps where I might think they should be? And so I'm just wondering, like, you might have already answered this, but like, have we thought about, like, when we're thinking about the longitudinal piece, how we can really demonstrate to parents too, to say, we're making really significant progress year to year, growth-wise, we're making it, and we know that assessments aren't always the most, essential indicator of a student's success. So I was just curious if you could just speak to any of those pieces.
Sure, I can speak briefly to differentiating for parents and families gains and growth, because I think that Prince George's County has experienced both. And speaking to Dr. Wright, we had a meeting at the state yesterday, and making sure that the assessment that is selected at the state is truly measuring the proficiency of students at the level at which is accurate. So I think your question is important, and looking at longitudinal data, we have noticed that our MCAP scores have not necessarily matched the gains and the growth and our DIBELS, our literacy proficiencies. And so I think it's important to speak to parents and families about what that means, and the differences potentially between our state assessment and what we're seeing on that, and then our formative measures that we're seeing in our district that are being given more often.
Yeah, and real quick, I see the time. One of the reports on the growth tile is a report that compares Prince George's County students to the students in the state of Maryland. And basically what it's saying is that you can move students from Prince George's County to other school districts and you will see similar growth. So that is a good indication to say that we're making steady progress, but there's much more progress to be made. But that report is there for you when you have access to the live dashboard.
All right, thank you both. I'm not sure if you want to say anything, Dr. Joseph.
Yeah, I was going to say, the good thing about the way we're looking at data now is it shifts our conversation in Prince George's County from, because now, proficiency standards in Maryland are extremely high, and they should be. And it's our goal to make sure students are proficient. But what happens right now is we get the measure from the state. We've seen the growth, but if they didn't hit proficiency, you just see they're not proficient. So this allows us to better communicate that our kids are growing. Mm-hmm. Now, the standard is the standard, and we expect to hit the proficiency standard here. But we want to be able to tell the story of growth, because it can be demoralizing when you've seen great progress, but you didn't hit the standard, and then you're deemed a failure. And again, I think our state has committed to focusing on equity, and in that meaning, we're trying to communicate and accelerate the growth, recognizing kids start the race at different levels, and now we have to work to accelerate. But this will allow us, from an instructional standpoint, to celebrate our teachers and our students and our families for growing, but acknowledging we've got to figure out how to accelerate now. Because if we just continue to grow, and that's where Mr. Whittington communicated, being green shows you've grown, but if you were 3 or 4 grade levels behind and you grew a year, yeah, you made growth, but we have to accelerate you. And we can now target where and how we need to accelerate students, instead of just making the assumption because they didn't make proficiency, we need to remediate them.
Mm-hmm. I love that, yeah. And I'm not sure I have a minute left, but I'll just say, like, I think I'm advocating here for parents in saying that I think sometimes when we look at data, we may see a score, we may see a number, we may see a color and say, this might not be the right place. And we know that there are so many great things happening in Prince George's County. And I think the piece that really would be helpful to know is, like, when we talk about remediation, when we talk about CSI, which are our schools that are, being addressed because of special education needs, those don't need to be deterrents, because that growth piece speaks to the strength and the power of what's happening underneath that. But I think that's a complex discussion that not everyone's it's not straightforward, right? It is more nuanced, and that's how do we contextualize that for a person who's just an onlooker? Okay, I want to go to second round. So the second round first is Dr. Moss.
Again, thank you all for this. 3 things. One, I want to celebrate our superintendent and this leadership team. I don't know how you all built this in this short time, so give yourselves a round of applause. I mean, this is insane. Number two, I want to talk about state level advocacy in that while we have a rigorous proficiency standard in Maryland, other states account for growth more in their model towards school accountability. And I would suggest that PGCPS uses this dashboard and the impact of it to advocate at the state level for a more growth-centered model rather than just a proficiency-centered model. Because what happens in districts that serve a high population of students who are farms or are underserved, while the goal remains proficiency, it does not account for the hard labor that educators are putting in every day moving those students. And so I would like for this work to move from the technical work that we're doing in the system to adaptive work at the state level to shift policy change. And whatever we need to do as a board, we want to support you in that. The final piece, this model is essentially like baking a cake. You throw everything in it and you try to get a good cake out of it, and you try to predict if the cake is going to be good enough if you put the right ingredients in it. That's what we're saying here. I'd like to take the model a step further. I'd like to measure rate of change over time. So from year to year, how quickly are we growing children? Are we getting better faster at that? And then what supports would we need as a district and a system to get better faster at growing children? So you would essentially add another column to this growth effect size column that would literally measure our rate of change. Do we have schools that are getting better faster? Do we have schools like Drew Freeman, where last year we had 427 kids who were getting suspended? We're down to 79 now. That's insane, and we need other folks in the system to be able to do that. So I'd like to see that baked into the public-facing model in some way.
All right. We have Board Member Brown.
Yes, thank you so much, Vice Chair. Have we, I know this dashboard is still kind of new, but have we been able to identify the largest gaps between the expected and the actual growth? Have we identified what groups are that we're actually targeting to see this is where we really need to see growth here?
I think it could be in any number of those measures. It doesn't have to just be academically. It could be chronic absenteeism. It could be college and career readiness. So our goal and our hope is to, now that we're taking a closer look at all of these indicators together, that we can start to see trends or patterns of specific student groups and looking at these different measures and where they're being successful and where there's still challenges.
Thank you. The other question, once we find this information, and this is probably like a of course question or answer, but are the resources and interventions equitably being distributed to schools with the greatest demonstrated need?
So from an instructional standpoint, I would say yes. Our teams are constantly looking at the data. You know, you'll continually hear me say our Tier 1 instruction has to be the best. I can't wait on intervention. We need to make Tier 1 as solid as possible. So that means every single school getting the best start possible. And from there, looking at the data, when we put an intervention in place and seeing who's using it, who's not, then us having conversations about using it. For example, I had a conversation with our high school reading supervisor today. We use Achieve 3000, and he indicated that every school that used it to the way it should, every last one of those kids grew. And I was like, I need the data. Do you have? He's like, yeah, we have it. Like, I mean, so when you hear that, we have to look for those gaps and make sure that we're filling the gaps. So from an academic standpoint, yes, I would also say with community schools, we have that. I would say our school team. What I would just add is that Dr. Joseph has tasked us with how are we working across teams to not, number one, duplicate efforts, to overburden schools, and to be as more streamlined as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Board Member Walker.
Thank you so much. Oh, these are great questions tonight. You all are checking them off my list. One is, would you be open to a date-driven, because we can take a lot of time, but a date-driven feedback opportunity for board members to give any input on a dashboard, which, by the way, I think is phenomenal. Thank you for saying yes. I can see it all in your faces already. So you just tell us the date, and then that'll be our deadline. The next is, I am looking forward to not only the trends and patterns for the student groups, but also maybe the trends and patterns as we look at, I know you all will look at it a million different ways, but also for the schools themselves. Because I think there are going to be opportunities for best practice sharing because it's happening in schools. When you talk to principals and the principals get together, they talk about what's working really well, and then some other principals will then grab that and be able to share that inside of their schools. So as you dissect the information, maybe just taking a look at the schools and where we can then better place our resources. I don't know who I'm looking at. So better place our resources, that'll be amazing. I'm really looking forward to seeing this dashboard in action. I think too, our parents are going to really appreciate, there's like a career readiness section and what percentage are we there, really understanding what that means so that as they participate in schools, right, they are volunteers in schools that they can help and see the impact that they're making as well as how their students and their scholars are thriving. I think it's going to be amazing.
And in support of your question, we already have a feedback button, but we would love to meet with you as well. And we provided that feedback button to you maybe
Did you really?
2 weeks ago. Yes,
Well,
so feel free to
thank
share.
you for letting me know.
You have the beta
Let me look at it.
link, so you can drive and give us
I know
any
that's
feedback
right,
that you would
accountability.
have.
Come on through. Let me find it. Thank you.
All right, but we'd love to have a date, and we'll definitely entertain any of your questions or recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next, we have board member, or Dr. Anderful.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good evening, everyone. I don't have too much to add, as I think everyone's already shared. All the questions have certainly been addressed, so thank you all so much. But I will echo all of my colleagues and just saying how amazing this is. I know I recall seeing this weeks ago. I even saved it in my bookmarks. I don't know where I got it from. I've been sharing it with everyone. I'll be honest, I don't know how I got it, but I have it, and so I've had the opportunity to play around in it. And so with that, I think everyone's aware I have a child in the school system. He's in elementary school, and one of the first things I did, of course, as a parent, was, I kind of started with, the district performance. I went to my son's school, to the individual school, and then I logged into Parent View to look directly at my son. Now, where I was having a bit of a challenge was trying to figure out how to connect the dots between all the things. And as I got into Parent View, I really wasn't sure what I was looking at outside of what I would already see. So I say all this to say, I think there's an opportunity. I know you have the feedback button, but I think there's an opportunity. I know Board Member Walker mentioned engaging the PCAC. I'm wondering if you all have thought about actually having small, focus groups with different audiences, just to give them an opportunity to engage with it and to give you all an opportunity to get some really specific feedback. Does that resonate, or is that something that you've already done? I'll just pause there.
Sure. I can speak to, we had the 60 minutes with principals and assistant principals.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of our first iteration. We also did a 30 or 60-minute session with all of the directors in the school district just to kind of get their feedback. But I think we can do more targeted focus groups. But to date, we've gotten about 75 pieces of feedback already in the feedback button from school leaders. Anything from positive comments and feedback to, hey, would you consider this? But it also gives principals and assistant principals the ability to ask questions about their data. If they see something that doesn't quite look right, that holds us accountable to make sure that we are validating and doing quality checks on our data. And to your point about the connecting the dots, I think our informational video that we create with the communications office gives us an opportunity to be able to connect the dots between those three distinct dashboards. So thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
And we will follow up with PCAC. I think that's a great idea to have the parents giving feedback.
That's great. And then we have Board Member Goins-McGinnis.
My only thing is a request really quickly. The connection between this dashboard and then our state report cards, just wherever we find similar data, if we can highlight that so our parents know, those of us who have, and I'm pretty sure my colleagues have gotten this from some of our constituents who are very tied into that and want to know how their school measures up and all of the things, especially as we are comparing and looking at schools and leading into now our specialty programs, applications, all of that kind of stuff. If we could just have that highlighted wherever it shows up on this page.
All right, so we have no more questions. So I want to say thank you, Dr. Joseph, team, for this phenomenal presentation. We're going to move to the report of the committees. So first up, we have the Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee. And I want to recognize Board Member Eager, Board Member Boozer-Struther, Chair of the Climate Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee, to present the committee's report.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Briggs. The Climate Change Action Plan Ad Hoc Committee, comprised of 16 climate experts from diverse backgrounds, serves as both a strategic guide and a call to action. It encourages students, staff, families, partners, and administrators to collaborate on building a more sustainable economic, social, and environmental future with the PGCPS Climate Change Action Plan as the guiding force. Since the adoption of the plan, the committee has begun advancing efforts across its 8 priority areas. Support environmental justice through climate curriculum, training, and partnerships, reduce carbon footprints from PGCPS buildings, commit to renewable energy sources for a net zero emissions future, commit to low carbon school transportation, reduce food waste and grow climate-friendly food, commit to sustainable materials management and procurement, commit to climate resilient land management, lead by example to support transformational change. The Climate Change Action Plan committees are myself as chair, Donald Bell, Joseph Jakuda, Christina Kwok, Timothy Meyer, David Noto, Beth Novick, James Dubon Garcia, who's a student at Parkdale High School, Sophia Villar, who's an alumni of PGCPS, Michael Witherspoon, student, Academy of Health Sciences, Kate Wunderlich, James Roberson, Ramon Palencia Calvo, Antoine Thompson, Maya Gadara, student, Oxon Hill High School, Olivia Thomas, student, Flowers High School, and Dorothy Morrison, Director of Sustainability and Resiliency, is our administration liaison. Throughout the school year, the committee will meet bi-monthly following a tentative work plan that addresses each of the 8 priorities. On behalf of the committee, we sincerely thank you for standing with us in this important work. Your continued support and commitment inspire hope, not only for our planet today, but also for the future our students will inherit. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Board Member Boozer-Struther. I would like now to recognize Board Member Moss, Chair of the Policy and Governance Committee, to present the Policy and Governance Introduction and Charge for the year, along with the committee's report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vice Chair Briggs. The Policy and Governance Committee is charged with facilitating short and long-range strategic planning for our school system. To aid in that goal of providing an excellent education to our students and empowering our communities, the committee has a review plan to discuss 42 policies this year, which that process began in August of 2025 and will end in 2026. These policies were selected in consultation with board members, superintendent, with also hypersensitivity to legal ramification, citation corrections because of law changes, rescissions, cycle updates, or aligning with new state-level policy. This year's committee is chaired by myself, Dr. Moss. Ms. Amy Olivo is our amazing committee vice chair. Mr. Jonathan Briggs serves on our committee. Ms. Olita Walker, Ms. Robin Brown. Ms. Welsh serves as director of the Office of Government Relations and Compliance and Procedures. That is our charge. As it relates to policies, generally we would have policies to move forward, but we issued a public notice regarding our actions and our public comment opportunity. We inadvertently, at our September 16th, 2025 Policy and Governance Committee, voted to send several policies for public comment in accordance with Board Policy 8102. However, at the September 2025 meeting, the Board of Education, these items were inadvertently advanced to board action instead of being placed for public comment. So we voted on these items rather than sending for public comment. We noticed we made a mistake, and in full transparency and to ensure community input, the board is correcting this procedural oversight for the following policies: employee use of social media and personal electronic devices, Policy 3000 business, Policy 9354 board members voucher reimbursement, Policy 5011 home and hospital teaching, Policy 8100 Board of Education standing committees and focus work groups, Policy 1114 newspaper advertising was up for rescission, Policy 1116 up for rescission, information packet, Policy 2483 was up for rescission, notification of Board of Education policies, Policy 510.4 sibling enrollment, Policy 8350 numbering indexing board actions, and then Policy 9140 Citizens Advisory Committee. Additionally, the committee is waiting a legal opinion from the Maryland Attorney General regarding Education Articles 31004 and 4205. These two policies impact the process for the board chair and superintendent to sign contracts. That means that Board Policy 3323, purchasing, will remain under review pending this guidance. Finally, I'd like to note that the policies that I just named are available for public comment, given that we failed to do so in the beginning, through November 11th. So if you want to add public comment, you're able to do that. This is an extended comment period, and it's to ensure the community has ample opportunity to provide input. Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs. This ends the policy and governance report.
All right, thank you so much, Board Member Moss. If there is no objection, the board shall accept the committee's reports and recommendations. All right, there being no objections, we're going to move to the presentation, which I would like to recognize Dr. Joseph for the Multilingual Learners Action Plan presentation. So I will turn it over to you again.
Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs, members of the board, and members of our community. Tonight, we share an important update on our multilingual learners. Today, more than 33,000 of our students speak over 120 different languages and come to us from more than 100 different countries. They enrich our classrooms and our county with their culture, their perspective, and their resilience. This presentation will provide a clear picture of their progress, showing both the growth we have seen and the areas where additional support is needed. You will hear about our English language development strategic plan, which includes new curriculum tools, expanded professional development for staff, and wraparound supports for families. Importantly, the data shows that once our multilingual learners exit the program, they often outperform their peers. That's a powerful reminder of the potential within every student that we provide the right opportunities and supports to. We must continue to refine our strategies, engage families more deeply, and advocate for the legislative and financial support necessary to sustain this critical work. Tonight's presentation highlights not only where we are, but where we must go to ensure that every multilingual learner in Prince George's County thrives. Now I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Melissa Canny, the Supervisor of English Language Development Office.
Good evening, board members. I want to start by sharing, as you saw in the video, we have transitioned from ESOL to English Language Development and English Learner to Multilingual Learner. That was a recommendation of the blueprint, and we made that change in July of 2023, and the state just made that change in April of 2025. However, you may still see some reference to ESOL and EL because that was the names of the committees or the groups during that time. So today, I'm going to provide you a brief overview of the demographics of our population, go into our strategic plan, and highlight our goals, our progress, and our expectations. I will briefly touch upon our language proficiency and academic achievement data progress, and then I'll go over our ELD supports and parent engagement strategies. When we look at our demographic data, as Dr. Joseph shared, we have 33,501 multilingual learners in the district. That is 26% of the population. This is a 2,000 student decrease from last year, with the majority of those students being at the elementary level. You can see at elementary, there's about a 25% of our population, so that's about 1 in 4. And at middle and high, we're at about 20% of the population, or 1 in 5. There is at least one multilingual learner in every school in Prince George's County. To give you a little picture, this is how our population growth has occurred over the last 20 years. We have usually increased by about 1,000 to 1,500 multilingual learners each year. This is a 440% increase over the last 20 years. As Dr. Joseph shared, you can see that our multilingual learners come from over 116 countries. You will notice, though, that 54% of our multilingual learners are born here in Prince George, or in the United States. They just speak another language at home. The majority of our students speak Spanish at home, and then you see the top 10 languages, with the top ones being French, Dari, and Pashto. Our students are very diverse, come from very diverse countries, and speak many different languages and have rich cultures. They also have varying proficiency levels. So you can see that about 50% of our students are at the level 1 newcomer and level 2 to 2.9, and then about 50% are at 3.0 to 4.4, except for at elementary, where we have a larger percentage of students who are at that lower proficiency levels. So just to talk about our performance with acquiring language and academic performance, I'll touch upon the English language proficiency. So every year, our students are assessed with WIDA Access, and this is the data over the last 4 years. In the first column, you can see the number of students that we assessed. The second column highlights our growth to target. The state has a growth to target for each student, and they are given an individualized proficiency based on their incoming proficiency. And so you see the percent of students that met their growth to target overall, and then by elementary, middle, and high. And you can see we have decreased in the percent of students meeting their growth to target, and I'll touch upon that in a little bit. Percent of exits, that's the students that reach a 4.5 in the state of Maryland. We stay at about an 8 to 9%. We have decreased, and then we went back up to 9% this past year, or 8%. The percent of long-term MELs. So in 2019, when we looked and dug into our data, we did notice that Prince George's County had a large number of long-term English language learners or multilingual learners. Those are students who've been in the program for 6 years or more, and we felt that was a really area that we had to address. And so if you look at this data here, you can see at elementary, we worked to ensure that we were exiting students before they went to middle and high. And then at middle, we did decrease the percent of long-term multilingual learners. I do want to preface, though, without incoming students, especially at secondary, you will see the percent of long-term multilingual learners increasing. Just because at secondary, we tend to have more newcomers, which are not coming anymore. As Dr. Strader and his team have shared before, this is the MCAP data for ELA and math, and you can see the gray, which are our students who have exited once they've acquired English. They outperform our native speaking peers, except for in geometry and algebra. So just to touch upon our strategic plan, I'm going to start with some of our key challenges. I talked about our long-term multilingual learners. The growth to target model that the state created has students making growth within about 4 to 5 years. If they don't make growth in 4 to 5 years, the only way they can show growth is to exit. And so our long-term multilingual learners, if they don't exit, are counting as not met, and there's no way for them to show growth, even though they may make some incremental growth each year. So that is a challenge for us. And then just making sure that we ensure that our multilingual learners who are dually identified not only receive their special ed services, but also receive their ELD services as well. And then increasing the representation of our MLs in various programs. So we don't want language to be a barrier, but we want to make sure that our MLs are represented in all programs. And then with multilingual learners being in every school, building the capacity of staff is a challenge. And as Dr. White has shared, we want to make sure that the programming is being done effectively, and if our multilingual learners aren't scheduled for their ELD courses, it's hard to give them the program they need in order to exit. So proper scheduling. And then we currently in the state of Maryland, are looking in the blueprint to identify and service pre-K students. We do not do that for Prince George's County. It's not really done anywhere. And so just looking at how we could do that and what are the challenges with doing that. And then building the knowledge of our families and helping to make them partners in our work. Vacancies, I'm proud to say that we only have 2.5% of vacancies in ELD. That's a lot to Dr. Joseph, our work, but it's still a challenge. Still a challenge because even though we don't have that many vacancies, when there are content vacancies, our ELD teachers are often asked to fill in the ELD teacher vacancies. And then just the last one, the political climate has put a lot of stress on our students, the families, and our staff, and just has decreased our incoming international students. So to touch upon our strategic plan, we developed our strategic plan in 2020, right before the pandemic or during the pandemic, for implementation aligning with Prince George's County strategic plan over 5 years. It was aligned with the Prince George's County Board of Ed's work group, and we had to shift things once the pandemic came and had to adjust with the needs of the pandemic, and then the blueprint came and we had to adjust and shift there. So we have the 4 goals that we've created to increase academic achievement, to increase the capacity of staff, and to decrease our vacancies, and then to increase family engagement and community engagement. Though those goals have remained the same, some of the strategies have changed over the 5 years due to the blueprint and the pandemic. So these are our 4 goals and the different strategies that we have used to address those goals. When looking at increasing academic achievement, we did really focus on our newcomer population and those long-term multilingual learners, and enhancing our curriculum and making sure we had the supports in the curriculum to address the students' needs. When we look at increasing staff capacity, you see the key ELD strategies. That's actually a baby out of Dr. White's brain and mind. She asked us to come up with strategies that should be in every classroom, and I'm happy to say they're embedded throughout the district, and now we're working on getting them in every curriculum. And then we also have various professional development that we offer throughout the district. With decreasing our vacancies, we work very closely with human resources. We started the first ever resident teacher program, and we are in the 4th cohort this year, and then we recruit very heavily to meet the needs and ensure we're staffing our ELD positions. With family and community engagement, we've always done district-wide things, but this past year we hired our first ML family engagement specialist, and I'm very happy to say that we have a robust family engagement, and we have workshop templates, communication templates, and the family English literacy courses is something that the board recommended, that we created a template for, and schools are starting and they're hoping to really roll them out coming this year and next year. So what are our wraparound supports? A lot of this is similar to the things that I addressed on the last slide. We do implement our key ELD strategies in all of our PD. It's embedded in everything and in our curriculum enhancements. We are working to develop strong ELD teams. We've switched this year to help to develop the schools we're working with so that they feel empowered and can lead their program. We are enhancing our curriculum and making sure it aligns with WIDA, the consortium we belong to that provides our standards, as well as the Common Core. And then just making sure that our linguistic supports are in the core areas where we may have new multilingual learners. We're very strategic in creating and investing in new interventions. You see Summit K-12 up there. There's not much out there for our middle school students or our high school students, and we looked very hard and went through vendor after vendor. And we came across Summit K-12 to develop our students' English language proficiency and implemented it last year with great success. The students loved it, and the teachers loved it, and we have 4 family accounts for each license, so we're working to get more usage with families this year. We also collaborate regularly with various offices to enhance the programming. We work regularly with CTE, TAG, World Languages, and dual enrollment, just to try to remove those barriers. And then we're working really hard to move from family engagement to just be involvement, to make our multilingual learner families partners. And so we've really shifted this year. We made sure that we did a intense needs assessment and looked at the schools who haven't done a family engagement event or involved their parents and tried to dig into why and looked at trying to help them to ensure that every school is engaging and working with their parents to be partners. And so just the last slide, this is just really where we could use your support. Every year we get a Title III entitlement grant, It is funded by the federal government, and we know that that funding is potentially going to end. So you can see where that $4 million is spent each year on our coaches, a data platform, as well as supplemental programs and resources, and then for our professional learning and family engagement. When we look at legislative priorities, the top two are really for the state of Maryland, extending accountability measures. When you looked back at that chart where our multilingual learners outperformed, that gray group, they only count in the accountability measure after they've exited for 2 years. The federal government allows us to include them for 4 years, so advocating for the state that we could include them for 4 years would be a great way to advocate. And then reevaluating the growth to target model. I talked about the fact that our long-term Ls just don't have a way to make growth, and if you look across the state, that's not just something that's happening in Prince George's County, it's across the state, especially at secondary, where you'll see more long-term multilingual learners. So we're about to get a new assessment, so it'd be a great time to reevaluate the model that was developed in 2017. And then just nationally, with the Every Student Succeeds Act, just continuing to advocate for funding for Title III. And recently, the U.S. Department of Education rescinded the Dear Colleagues letter for English learners, which provided us guidance for how we run our program. It didn't get rid of the laws, so we're still doing our hard work, but just continuing to advocate for guidance to make sure that we are providing the needs for our multilingual learners. And that is it.
All right, well, thank you so much for that very thorough presentation. Board members, are there any questions about the presentation? We're going to start with Dr. Moss.
I'd love for you to speculate a little bit around the compacted impact of we potentially losing Title III, but also losing 2,000 students in the program from last year, and what that might mean for Blueprint funding, and what that will mean for, what implications does it have for us from a budget perspective of being able to continue the great work that we're doing for multilingual learners. And the other piece of this may be Dr. White or someone else's question. This idea that when multilingual learners exit the program, they outperform non-multilingual learners is really encouraging to me, but at the same time, I'm wondering, what are we learning from that? Is there something about the way in which we're teaching diphthongs and digraphs that's helping kids read better using the science of reading? Yeah, talk to me about both of those things.
So the impact on the budget, a lot of our programming and what we do for multilingual learners is spent with that funding. I think we could streamline a little bit. We do have 29 staff in my office that are coaches. So we have the key ELD strategies, we have the strong ELD teams. I think we could still do that work. It would just greatly impact a lot of the professional development, the family engagement. We'd have to find other ways. We've already begun looking for philanthropic partners, grants, other ways we could do it. That's really, really difficult, but we've begun looking. And so just trying, that'll be a great impact. The number of students, it's already impacting our schools. We've kind of shifted, especially at the secondary. There's not as many students. Normally, at this time of the year, our newcomer classes are booming with students, and schools are looking for ways to create another section. And in many of our classes now, they have 3 students in one of their newcomer sections. So they're trying to figure out, what do I do with 3 sections of students that have 3 students in them? And so we're working with the schools to find ways to reassign those staff to do things like co-teaching, because there's still effective ways to use those teachers. But it also will impact budget, because each of our multilingual learners brings in, and I think Chief Howe could probably speak to this a little more, but it brings in that extra money for each student, and without those students, it will impact the schools, especially our schools with large multilingual populations.
Chief Howe, did you want to say anything to this?
No, she summarized it pretty well, but I guess to her point, in addition to all the funding that we get for every single student, the foundation amount, there is an additional amount on top of that for every single student. So with that decline in enrollment, it's going to decline the revenue coming into the district.
Okay, we have Board Member Olivo.
Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs. Thank you, team, for this really informative presentation. I wanted to say especially thank you for the very specific bullet points on slide 18 for Board of Education support. That's incredibly helpful. I wanted to ask, so my younger son was lucky enough to be part of the second year of the Spanish immersion program here in Prince George's County Public Schools, and subsequently in 8th grade earned his seal of biliteracy, which we're very proud of. I remember in the early years of him attending Cesar Chavez, which is our dual Spanish immersion program, the staff talking about the fact that our native Spanish speakers in that program were exiting out of the program more quickly than the English language learner students at other schools. And I wondered if you know, and if you don't know that right now, that's fine, if that's still the case, and what lessons we might learn from those students who are in the dual Spanish immersion that we are possibly implementing across other schools.
I can't speak specifically to the data on the immersion schools, but we have been working, I've been working very closely with Immersion to develop a proposal to start boundary immersion schools in our largest programs. Again, that comes with money, and that is a recommendation of the blueprint. And I'm also working with world languages to assess more of our students, especially our multilingual learners, for the seal of biliteracy. So currently, our multilingual learners, if they're not in a world languages course, they may miss out on that opportunity. And so we're looking at ways that we can ensure that they are given the world languages and the seal of biliteracy.
One additional thing I'll add about our immersion programs, the 50-50 model that you're speaking to, oftentimes because we only have one school that all of our elementaries feed into in middle school, many of our families don't want their students traveling all the way from the north to the center of the county. So it's not that they want them exiting because of the language that they already know. Oftentimes it's culturally and not wanting them to travel and be that far away from home.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely a challenge with our specialty programs overall. And just in my remaining few seconds, I wanted to also really recommend with the parent engagement to look to partner with our nonprofit organizations who are already, especially in our middle and high schools, working with our with newcomer students and multi-language learner students to connect with them and how they're outreaching to parent engagement and how we can perhaps even, strengthen their outreach with some of our tools and information that we have. I think that could be a great partnership. Thank you.
And we can send out again, I know last year Melissa had an opportunity to come to Academic Achievement and present, and she also shared each district, all of the supports that the schools did in each of your areas with those families, and we can share that data out again.
All right, thank you so much. Board Member Walker.
Yes, thank you so much. If we were to backspace to that slide on federal funding, this is to board members, the P&G chair and vice chair. I think we do have the opportunity to share what this means, the reduction of funding, as we see intentional dismantling of education and educational funding and what that means to our PGCPS scholars. I think this will be a great, oh, it didn't come on there. That's okay. We remember the slide, but it'll be a great opportunity to leverage this within our legislative session. I think that the education piece is going to be so important so that then they can articulate it well, what it means for PGCPS. And I just wanted to talk about Educate, Advocate, Act, and we can do that together. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Board Member Goins-McCants.
Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs, and thank you so much, Dr. White, for bringing up the presentation that you all were able to give last year in academic achievement. I have seen so many things that we pushed and asked you about showing up in this presentation, so thank you so much for making those changes. I did want to ask specifically, and I don't know if this is a Dr. White question or somebody else, specifically about integrating our ML students into our other specialty programs. Partially, does the seal of biliteracy qualify them as college and career ready to be able to get into those other programs? And then what is the major barrier that we're seeing to them being able to access those programs?
So the seal of biliteracy isn't a barrier to getting into specialty programs. We're really working with our families. My family engagement specialist has a steering committee, and we meet with them quarterly, and then we have a few focus groups, and we're trying to figure out why our families aren't going to specialty programs. Sometimes, as Dr. White shared, they don't want to go somewhere where their child is far away from their boundary. So our families, if they can't get to their child, it's an inconvenience, and they'd have to take an Uber to pick them up. And so there's a lot of barriers for our families. And so we're trying to make sure we figure out what is the true problem before we try to fix it. So I don't know that we have the true problem yet.
But what I will add is that's why when we, years ago, when we looked at science and tech and aviation, that's one of the programs where parents don't apply, because we also realized that we had brilliant students who did not access, and we wanted an equity point. And we wanted to really work with those families on your child qualified, and we really want your child to come in. Those programs are at 3 different locations. So that was one of the reasons that we pushed for that equity model.
Thank you. In the balance of my time, I just wanted to highlight, I think we're glossing over this a little bit too much, the fact that when our students exit ML, they are outperforming not just other non-multilingual learner students, but they are outperforming some of our shared districts overall. And that's a big thing, especially considering that we have, 33,000 MLs in our county, which is bigger than some other entire school districts. So just wanted to highlight that for people listening and celebrate you all for all of the great work that you're doing.
We have Dr. Anderful.
Okay, once again, so many great things have already been said, so I will keep my comments brief, and again, just start with saying thank you so much for bringing this to us. I was also going to mention the same thing about the presentation that was provided previously, so I would love to kind of have a moment to circle back on some of that information. I think that would be great to see now that we have this data. I'm going to go back to a point that Board Member Olivo was asking about. So she asked questions about family engagement. I'm curious, you mentioned that there were, I lost my note in here somewhere. There were, I don't know if it was a specific number. Nonetheless, you said that you found that there were some schools that were not having, they were having either limited family and community engagement, they weren't having events. I can't recall exactly what you were saying. I'm wondering if you found any specific factors that was actually contributing to that.
So we just started that work this year. So last year we started collecting the data, and it is self-reporting. The schools have to complete the survey, and that was new to them last year, so we wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so this year we shared the data, and all of a sudden schools were like, wait, I did something. So part of it is figuring out, was it that they didn't do anything or they just didn't complete the form?
I understand.
Now we are digging into the data to find out why, and we've started meeting with the staff. So we don't have the reports yet, but as we get them, we will share.
Perfect, just a curiosity. Oh, Dr. White.
I would just add, one of the things she mentioned, and this year our focus is ELD teams as well. So in addition to strategies, it's teams, because we want to take that off the principal. And really, if we can build strong teams that can work with teachers, then you get more buy-in, then you build capacity, and then you see change in classrooms. And I think that then will get to also highlighting with parents.
Yep, agreed. Thank you. I have 35 seconds. So my last question is, so the multilingual learner enrollment graph that you have here, I'm wondering if you have this data broken down by district, or where would I go to find data that showed me specifically what growth enrollment has looked like in specific parts of the county?
I could get it for you. I just need a little time.
Okay.
I'll get it by district, just like I had the family engagement data.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much. Board Member Brown.
Dr. Anderful literally asked my question, so that I'm good, thank you.
Okay, great. And then we have student member of the board, Ari.
As always, thank you for this wonderful presentation. It was really nice. I have 2 quick questions. So my first question is from slide 8. I wanted to ask, so there's about 10,000, well, it actually says 9,907 students in the 3.0 to 3.9 proficiency level. And I wanted to know what strategies are in place to help get this largest group of students, like in the specific level to the successful and final stage of the proficiency level of 4.0 to 4.4?
So that's a great question. When we're looking at the students who are at a 3.0 to 3.9, those are our students who've acquired basic English and need targeted support. So we're really focusing on developing their language and enhancing their writing and reading skills to push them to the next level. So you may have seen we had a lot of focus on writing, because when you're acquiring English, that's often the hardest part, is the reading and writing. So we've been pushing writing strategies for the past 2 to 3 years to enhance our students' skills.
Thank you. And then my next question, so on slide 11, there was like a high percentage of multilingual learners that have exited the program, which is great, and that they are now outperforming the non-multilingual learners on the MCAP. So I just wanted to ask similarly, what are some of the strategies that, you know, can be credited for this amazing performance, and will the strategies be shared with like all the schools so that, you know, the other schools can also like achieve similar performances as well?
So I think one of the assets of our students is once they acquire English, and I have to attribute this to Dr. Strader. So this data isn't anywhere, and the state of Maryland doesn't showcase this data. But as we were working with Dr. Strader's team, we kept saying, we got to stop looking at our multilingual learners when they're acquiring English, because it's unfair, because they're acquiring English and you're expecting them to perform on tests that are rich in language. And so we pushed for this data to see if our multilingual learners were performing once they exited, and we finally found out that they actually were. I think what we can share is we are really intentional with our language development, and it's very rich. Now, I don't know if it's the science of reading, what we're doing that's different. I'd have to dig into the other areas.
And I would just say, even when you think back to the video we saw, and he said, what you put in front of children, so we can't count children out just because they come and you think they don't understand. They understand in their language, so even with pictures, everything has to be a touch point for them.
All right, I want to say thank you all so much for this really thorough conversation. We're going to move to the consent agenda. And I want to recognize Dr. Joseph for the consent agenda, items 15.1 through 15.14 for board approval.
Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs. I'm recommending that the board accept items 15.1 through 15.4 to be approved on this agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, would you like to pull any of these agenda items for discussion under general rules? I know we've already discussed this, so just want to say this. All right. So if there is no objection, I see that board member Anderful, you have a question? Oh, you want to pull out? Okay. What item would you like to pull? 15.8. Okay. Dr. Joseph, if you would like to update that to items 15.7 to 15.9 and 15.14.
Sure. Sure. I would ask that the board approve items 15.1 to 15.7 and then 15.9 to 15.14 under the consent agenda.
Okay. If there is no objection, the consent agenda items 15.1 through 15.7 and 15.9 through 15.14 will be adopted. Okay, there being no objections, the consent agenda items 15.1 through 15.7 and 15.9 through 15.14 are adopted. We're going to move to the general order. So we have an item that was pulled, and that is item 15.8, resolution for the continuation of the Foundation School Partnership for school year 25-26. Board members, do you have questions? Dr. Anderful?
Yes, my question is simple. I just would like a little bit of explanation about this partnership. I'm just not familiar with it. I see a really large price tag, and I'm just not clear on exactly what it is.
Sure, I'm going to turn it over to our Associate Superintendent, Trinell Bowman. What I will say is, I want to say 2 board meetings ago, we brought forth all our non-publics, but every single year, I know since I've been chief, we've always brought this particular one by itself to you. So know that they've all swept through, but I'll let Trinell explain why we bring this.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. So the Foundation's partnership allows us to place students. We have 15 seats there, and typically we place students there that have interfering behaviors, that are aggressive, that are also up for what we call at least a 45-day out of placement removal for discipline reasons. And typically when we look at our Foundation partnerships, we're looking at those particular students who come up for what we call long-term suspension. And there's 3 different areas that we look at in terms of placing students there, which is called a 45-day removal or an interim alternative educational setting. So that is an alternative placement that we use for students who may possess or bring dangerous weapons to schools. That could be also for students who may provoke bodily sustained injury to adults or other students, or students who may possess or use illegal drugs or weapons in the school. So it allows us to maintain a free and appropriate education and a placement that's outside of Prince George's County Public Schools. We've had this partnership probably around 25 years.
And so our other non-publics go through the CIP process, but when we need immediate for certain things, they are allowing us to do a 45-day quick in, quick out, possibly stay or cycle back through the CIP for an official placement.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for that. It's really helpful. I see, and you also mentioned 15 seats. I'm wondering, is that the same amount of seats that we've kept over the course of 25 years, or has it increased? I'm wondering if we actually use those seats.
Yes, we maintain and use those seats all year long. In terms of the wait time, sometimes there is a wait to even place students there because the 15 seats are available, but we have a great partnership with the school that sometimes will even let us go over that number when we're experiencing a high level of crisis. And those are the number of seats that we've maintained. There is a cost share that we do get back from the Maryland State Department of Education as a result of that partnership as well. So we don't entirely foot the entire bill. We do get a cost share that comes back from the Maryland State Department of Education.
Yep, saw that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. If there are no objections, agenda item 15.8 will be adopted. Okay, there being no objections, agenda item 15.8 is adopted. Is there any new business? Okay, seeing none, we want to thank you all for joining us for tonight's meeting. To our online viewers, thank you for watching. There being no further business, the time is now 8:59 p.m. and the October 23, 2025 Prince George's County Board of Education business meeting is adjourned. Good night.